Okay, so the first thing we are going to need to do to install our ESXi operating system is to download the ISO file. In order to do that, go to Google and type in ESXi 7 download. Usually the first link by VMware is the one that will give you the link to download the ISO file. You click on that. Once you get to that website, what you'll see is the VMware web portal. From here, you are going to need to create an account. So in order to download the software, unfortunately, you're going to have to log in. Now, once you've logged in with your account, I'm not going to log in as I've already downloaded the software, but you're going to need to create an account, log in, and then it will take you to the downloads page where you'll be able to see the software that you can download from VMware. Download the ESXi 7 VMware vSphere 7 ISO file. Once you've downloaded that, I've already got mine here, so if I minimize this, you'll see mine is here. So it's the VMware VM Visor installer 7.0. Now the update might be a bit different. Download that. Once you've downloaded it, we can then load it into our VMware workstation and start the installation process. So it is important that you create an account. Once you've created the account, log in and download the software. It's usually straightforward. And then you can start the download. So let's minimize this. So once you've downloaded, go to your VMware workstation application, and what we're going to do is we are going to create a new virtual machine. So if we right click in this area here, you can create a new virtual machine, and I believe you can also say file and new virtual machine. So either way, create a new virtual machine. I'm going to use the typical settings, and then it will ask me for the image file. My image file is on the desktop, so I'm going to click on that, click on desktop, select my hypervisor or my VM visor. There's my ISO file. Now, once I select my ISO image, click on next, because this is the software that's going to be installed on the as the operating system. I'm going to select VMware ESX because that's what it is. It is version 7. If you don't see, like mine, if you don't have version 7 appearing, just choose version 6 and that should be fine. Click on next. Give it a name. In my case, it's going to be ESXi 2, because I've already got ESXi 1 over here. I've already created it, configured it, set it up. It's all up and running. So this one, we're going to call it ESXi 2. For you, it will probably be ESXi 1 if you haven't created one already. It's going to be ESXi 1. And then it will ask you, where do you want to save the virtual machine? I don't want to save it to this location, so I'm going to change that and click on my D drive, select the backup folder, go to my virtual VMs, and from there I'm going to select OK on that. So it's going to be in my backup folder, and it's going to be the VMs folder. So let's say next. You could choose a different location. Just make sure you've got plenty of space in whatever location you're going to be installing the operating system on, because it is an operating system image, so you will need to have plenty of space available. Click on next. How big do you want the storage, the disk size to be? I'm just going to choose 60 gig for now. 40 gig should be sufficient, but actually, no, I'll leave it at 40 gig. I was going to choose 60, but I'll leave it at 40 gig. And this is just to split the virtual disk into multiple files, just for ease of management and backup. So I'll click on next. It gives you a summary. I'm going to keep everything as is right now, and then I'll click on finish. Now we should see ESXi 2 appearing there. If we right click on our ESXi server or ESXi VM, our virtual machine, we can then power it on. So we can go to power and start up the guest. We don't want to do that right now, because what we want to do is configure a few more things. So right click on your ESXi virtual machine. In my case it's 2, in your case it will probably be 1, and then go to settings. And what I want to do is I want to add a few more network adapters for my various different networks. If I just cancel this for a moment, I'll just show you with my ESXi 1. If I go to settings, what you'll see is we have 8 different adapters, and each of these will be connected to the various different networks that I have. For example, 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, and the 192.168 network. So let's just cancel this and say settings. So in there, we're going to click on add, and it's going to ask us what type of device do you want to add. I'll say network adapter. Click on finish. So it's added another network adapter. And from here, I'm going to select my virtual network that it's going to be on. I'll keep this one on 0 for now. Okay, so I've got 2. I should have 2 on VMnet 0. There we are. I'll have those 2 on VMnet 0. Click OK. Let's just compare this against my ESXi 1 just to make sure we're matching the networks. So actually no, it's VMnet 8 and then the others are going to be on 2, 3 and 4. So let's cancel this. Go back to my settings. Make sure we've got the right VMnet networks. So VMnet 8 and again VMnet 8. Where are we here? And then I'm going to add another network adapter, and that's going to be on VMnet 2. I'll add another network adapter, say finish, VMnet 2, and then we're going to do the same for VMnet 3. Add another network adapter, choose VMnet 3, add a second one for VMnet 3 network adapter, say VMnet 3 again, and finally we're going to add 2 more for VMnet 4. So finish, VMnet 4, and the last one for VMnet 4. Click on finish and VMnet 4. So we should in total have 8 network adapters. There we are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and each virtual network or VLAN will have 2 adapters connected to it. And it's just for redundancy, because you want your if one network card goes down in your server, we're trying to simulate a real world environment as much as possible. So if you have one network card goes down, then you want a second network card up and running to be able to allow your server to communicate with the rest of the network. So click on OK. Let's see if we've got the processors are fine. The memory is one other thing I'm going to adjust, and we'll just make that 8192. So we're going to give it 8 gig of memory, just like the other server. So there we are, 8 gig. Click on OK. We'll leave the 2 processors for now. It should be more than enough. Actually, make the cores 2 as well. Click on OK. That should be more than sufficient. So now we're going to start the installation process. So we'll click on power, start up the guest. It will boot from the ISO file. Press enter, and you'll see the hypervisor booting up, or the operating system booting up. There are several ways you can install the ESXi operating system. One of the ways you can install it is the interactive method, which is what we're doing, where you install from a USB or CD-ROM or so forth. In our case, we're installing from a CD-ROM. The other way is a scripted way, so you can create a script which then can boot off the network or USB, and that will then install your operating system according to the settings within those scripts. And the other way is what's called I think it's called the VMware auto deploy, or vSphere auto deploy, I believe it is. And again, you can use vSphere auto deploy to install install the image or the operating system on hundreds of hosts or machines. The script version or the script method and the vSphere or vSphere auto deploy method are out of the scope of this course. In this course, we're just looking at how to do the basic installations, so it is out of the scope of this course, but I will add a link to the documentation in terms of how to install ESXi in their various methods, and you can read up on those documentations. And if you want to practice further in the labs and create other virtual machines using those different methods, then you can do that. So let's just get this to boot up. Okay, so we're in the welcome screen. We press enter on the welcome screen to continue. We need to accept the license agreement, so we're going to press F11. It's going to scan for some hard disks. Alright, so let's just give that a few seconds, and it's detected our 40 gig hard disk, so we're going to install on there. If you've already got an image of ESXi, an older version installed on here, it will tell you it's detected it and it's going to overwrite it, which means everything on this hard disk is going to be deleted, it's going to be formatted. So just bear that in mind. If you've got any data on a disk that you're using, it is going to be deleted. So I'm just going to select my 40 gig disk by pressing enter. It asks me for the language. Choose the language which you want to use for your hypervisor. I'm going to select UK. That's the keyboard layout that I want. It's asking you to create a password. Now the password has to be, it has to meet the requirements of VMware's password complexity. So it's going to have uppercase, lowercase, numbers, as well as special characters, meaning special characters can be, for example, a full stop, it can be an exclamation mark, or so forth. So I'm just going to do that and then go down and do the same thing just to confirm the password, to make sure that the passwords match. Press enter to continue once you're happy with that. And then we've got the confirmation page to continue with the installation. If you're happy with everything, press F11 to start the installation process. We'll press F11. And that's the installation process now happening. So depending on the type of machine you have, the type of hard disks you're using, it can take some time. Mine's moving fairly quickly. If yours does take some time, allow it to do what it needs to do, allow the installation to complete, and you'll see the operating system will reboot once the installation is complete. There you go. Mine took a few seconds to complete, about less than a minute. It gives you a warning. Remove any installation media before rebooting, and then reboot. So for us, we'll just click on enter to reboot, and then it's going to reboot shortly. I'm going to press Control and Alt to exit from the virtual machine. Right click on here, and then what I'm going to do is go to my removable devices. Actually, let's see. Just boot from the disk. It seems like my removable devices have already been removed, so my CD-ROM's already been removed, which is good. It's now starting up from the disk, and it's giving me the specifications of my virtual machine. So as you can see, the VMware ESXi 7 and the build version. It's giving me the processor type. I've got an i7 4790 and the CPUs, which is 4 gig, as well as my RAM, which is 8 gig for this particular virtual machine. This is a lab only, so in a real world environment, you'd probably have anything between 64 gig to 128 gig to 256, depending on, and even more than that, depending on what sort of environment you've got running in your infrastructure, and what sort of what type of virtual machines are going to be running on those particular hosts. So do bear in mind that this is just a lab environment, so 8 gig is fine. We're probably going to have 1 or 2 virtual machines on each host. Okay, so as you can see, it's now started, and it's picked up an IP address from DHCP, and we are going to change that. So let's go into configuration now. Let's configure our ESXi host. So what I'm going to do is press F2 to customize and change the settings. F12 allows you to shut down and reboot. So let's press F2, click into the virtual machine, press F2, type in my root password, which is what I created when I was first setting it up, press enter. And in here, we've got a number of options. So I can configure the password, change that if I want to. I can configure the network management, which is the first thing I'm going to do, which is to configure the management network. So if I click into there, configure my network adapters. So if I go into there, I'm going to choose, for my management, I'm going to choose VMNIC 0 and VMNIC 1. That's going to be for my management. Okay, so in case this network card goes down or the cable gets disconnected, then my virtual machine will be able to use the next adapter to continue being connected to the network. This is why it's very, very important to have more than one network connection to your host. So I'll press enter on that once I'm happy. And then you've got the next option is the VLAN options. I'm going to allow, for the purposes of this lab, all VLANs to come through. The reason is I've got a number of VLANs on this in this environment. As you've seen, we've got the 192.168, we've got the 10.2 network, 10.3 network, and the 10.4 network. So I'm going to type in 4095. That is to allow access to all VLANs. So I'm going to allow that. So all of my VLANs can come through on those management network adapters. Click on enter or press enter. And then it just gives you a warning. You've entered VLAN ID of 4095. This host will receive all VLAN tagged frames and be able to send any VLAN tagged frame. So that's fine. Yes, we want to be able to do that. We've only got 4 VLANs anyway. So click on fine. Click on enter. If you've got in a real world environment, in your infrastructure environment, you don't want to allow all VLANs. You probably want to specify the particular VLANs that you want coming through, just for reducing the traffic that comes through those adapters. Okay, so next we've got the IPv4 configuration, which is we're going to change our IP address. Now, as you can see, it's selected, or it's set to use a dynamic IP. So it's got its IP from the DHCP server. We want to use a static IP because we don't want our IP address to change. If the server reboots and you're using a dynamic IP address, the next time it might pick up a different IP address, and you don't want that to happen. So select static, press enter on that. Oh, sorry, select static, here we are. And then in here, we are going to change the IP address. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep 192.168.220, and this one's going to be 132, I believe. Let me just go to my, press Control and Alt to come out of the virtual machine, so my mouse appears. Go back to my DC. Just quickly log into my DC because we want to make sure on DNS that our IP addresses match what we've set in our DNS. So here's AJ Labs. ESXi2 is 132. Okay, so go back to ESXi2. For you, this is ESXi1 you're setting up, so just make sure you give it an IP address that can be accessed on your server. Default gateway is fine, so we'll keep that and we'll say enter. Let's log into this, or click into it and press enter. IPv6, go into that. Now IPv6 we're not going to use, so we are going to disable it. So so we don't have that running, and press enter on that once we're happy with it. And then you've got your DNS configuration. So we click into here by pressing enter. Our primary DNS server, we're going to use the following DNS servers, and our domain controller is running as a DNS server anyway, so we're going to change the IP address of this to 192.168.220.130, I believe it is. Let's just double check that as well. Always important to check that you've got the right IP addresses when you're setting these up. So DC1 is 192.168.220.130. So that's our domain controller as well as our DHCP server and our DNS server. So let's go back to this and choose that. Yep, click into here. So now we're going to change the name to ESXi2.ajlabs.com. We're going to put the fully qualified domain name in there, and we're going to press enter once we're happy with that. And once we are happy with everything, we're going to press escape. So we've got our, on the right hand side you can see we've got our, let me just come out of this with my mouse, we've got our primary DNS server, which is 192.168.220.130, and we've got our name, which is the fully qualified domain name for our virtual machine or our ESXi host. And once we're happy with that, also just double check the management adapters, our IPv4 configuration. Yes, we're happy with that, and we're going to press escape, and it's going to say apply changes and reboot the host. We're going to say yes, please do that. So it's now applying those changes. It's going to restart. Once our virtual machine restarts, we will then carry on with the setup and the configuration. That's just rebooting. Okay, so it's rebooted, and as you can see, it's configured with the name as well as the IP address. So I'm just going to open up my, actually let me just click on finished installing on this. I'm going to open up my web browser. Well, before I do, this is my desktop PC. I'm just going to see if I can ping my ESXi server. So I'm going to say ping what have I done there? ESXi2.ajlabs, so ajlabs.com. Okay, so that's not pinging. So there's a couple of things we need to do to fix this. So let's just see what's going on. It's probably the default gateway. So let's see what we've got as our default gateway on this one. Click on our press F2 to go into settings, type in my root password. So again, this is good for troubleshooting. So what we're going to see is what the default gateway for this particular server is, which is the one that I initially configured, and that is the default gateway is 220.3. okay, so let's come out of that. Let's see if we can ping ESXi1. Yes, we can. So what we need to do is change the default gateway on this server here. So you need to make sure, it's very important that you need to make sure you get your default gateway settings right. Okay, let's log in. And what we're going to do is go to configure management network, IPv4, and change our default gateway to .3. Click OK, press escape, and it's going to apply the changes and restart the management network. We say yes, escape, and now we are going to attempt to ping the same server again. And if this time it doesn't work, the issue could possibly be with where the adapter is connected to. So let's click on OK. Let's cancel this and just check some of the settings. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to try to do to resolve this is to make sure, let's press F2 in this, just turn off the VLANs, because although we've set to allow all the VLANs, we don't really need the VLANs per se. So let's go to configure management network, VLAN options, and press enter on this. And we're going to save by pressing escape, select Wi-Fi yes, and see that. So now let's just see if we can ping it. DNS is working because it is resolving the IP, the name to the IP address, so that's fine. It's just a matter of connectivity and reachability. So let's see if we ping without the VLANs now. And yes, here we go. So ESXi2.ajlabs.com is working fine. Okay, in your infrastructure environment, you would want to set those VLANs just in case your virtual machines are on different VLANs, or and you need those VLANs to be coming through. In our case, we can turn it off. It's absolutely fine, which is what I've just done. Even though we did set it in the beginning, I've turned it off because it seems to be affecting our connectivity. So let's carry on with the configuration now. So let me just minimize this. So it all seems to be working. DNS has got everything on there. So if we go back to our DNS server and we log into this, we'll see that we've got our ESXi2 IP address set and the name, as well as our ESXi1. I've already set the vCenter server application or the appliance IP address as well, so we're going to set that up hopefully later on. But for now, we want to go into our settings to make sure everything is working in terms of connectivity. So I'm going to open up a web browser, and I'm going to navigate to ESXi1.ajlabs.com just to show you that DNS is functioning properly. As you can see, it's telling me it's not secure, and it's giving me the option to proceed. That's ESXi1, so it's say OK, and I can log in as root, and type in my password, which I created when I was first setting it up. And here we go. So that's the first virtual machine that the first ESXi host server that I set up, which is this one here. In your case, it's going to be a fresh one. So let's go into ESXi2 and do the same thing. ESXi2 root.ajlabs.com. Again, warning, and we'll say yes, proceed. And then we'll just type in our root password, log into that, and as you can see, we are in. You can just untick the customer experience improvement program, click OK, and there we go. So we're in, and we'll go through the configuration of this in the next video. So we've now set up our labs, and we have our virtual machine, which is an ESXi server running. We're able to connect to it using its name, as you can see here. We are able to connect to it using its IP address, so we can ping it. And now the next part, what we need to do is start the configuration. So this video was based on the installation, which is what we looked at. We've installed it using an ISO image. We've configured it during the installation, after the installation, during the installation process, as well as after the installation process. And now what we need to do is carry on with the configuration, which we'll do in the next video.